The Soviet Union entered the age of tanks later than other major powers. But once that journey began, it never stopped. This is the complete evolution of Soviet tanks, from copied foreign designs to some of the most influential armored vehicles in history. Only real production tanks, shown in strict chronological order. The story begins with imitation. Russky Reno was an almost direct copy of the French Renault FT. Only about 15 to 17 vehicles were built, and they saw little to no combat. Yet this modest start marked the birth of the Soviet tank industry. The T-80 became the first tank designed in the Soviet Union. Light, only 5.9 tons, but nearly 960 units were produced. This was not a breakthrough, but a training ground for mass production. The T-24 was an ambitious leap toward a true medium tank. Weighing 18.5 tons, only 24 were built. It failed mechanically, but taught the USSR that simplicity mattered more than ambition. The T-26 became the workhorse of the 1930s. Over 11,000 tanks were produced, weighing about 9.6 tons each. It fought extensively in the Spanish Civil War, proving the value of mass-produced armor. Speed became doctrine. The BT-2 was a convertible tank. Tracks could be removed. In trials, it reached up to approximately 100 kilometers per hour on wheels and about 70 kilometers per hour on tracks. Astonishing for the early 1930s. The BT-5 refined the fast tank concept. About 2,000 units were built. This was no longer an experiment. It was maneuver warfare in steel. The T-28 followed a different philosophy. A multi-turreted breakthrough tank weighing 28 tons, with over 500 units produced. During the Winter War, Finnish troops nicknamed it the mail coach, after finding documents and payroll inside a captured vehicle. The idea reached its extreme with the T-35. 5 turrets, 45 tons. Only around 60 tanks were built. The largest serial multi-turreted tank ever, and a technological dead end. The BT-7 marked the peak of the fast BT line. About 5,500 vehicles were produced. Its design philosophy directly led to the creation of the T-34. The Soviet Union pioneered amphibious armor. The T-37A became the first mass-produced fully amphibious tank in the world. Light, only 3.2 tons, but strategically important. The T-38 refined amphibious reconnaissance tanks. An unusual fact, some were airlifted under TB-3 bombers suspended beneath the fuselage, a rare experiment for its time. The T-40 became the last pre-war amphibious light tank. Weighing 5.9 tons, it marked the end of an era. War would soon demand simpler, more robust designs. A new era began with heavy armor. The KV-1, weighing 45 tons, featured armor up to 75 millimeters thick. In 1941, many enemy guns simply could not penetrate it. The KV-2 was an assault tank. Its massive turret housed a 152 millimeter howitzer. Only 204 units were built, but its battlefield presence was overwhelming. Then came the T-34, sloped armor, wide tracks, balanced design. Over 84,000 units of all variants were produced, a tank that redefined armored warfare. The T-50 was meant to be the perfect light tank. Instead, it proved too complex and expensive. Only 69 vehicles were built. The T-60 was designed for rapid mass production. Over 6,000 units were built, even at automotive factories. Simplicity became a weapon. The T-70 expanded the light tank line. More than 8,000 units were produced. However, its one-man turret severely limited combat effectiveness. The KV-1S was a wartime compromise. Armor was reduced to improve speed. War forced balance between protection and mobility. The T-80 was the final attempt to salvage the light tank concept. It introduced a two-man turret, reducing commander workload. Too late, only about 100 units were built. A new heavy tank line emerged. The IS-1 was transitional and short-lived. Only 107 vehicles were produced. The T-34-85 transformed the legendary design, a new turret and an 85mm gun. For the first time, the commander could command, not reload. Over 22,000 were built during the war. The IS-2 was a breakthrough hammer, armed with a 122mm gun, weighing 46 tons, designed to destroy fortifications and heavy armor. The T-44 was a silent revolution, one of the first tanks with a transversely mounted engine, improving internal layout and lowering the silhouette. It became the foundation of post-war Soviet tank design. The war ended with a statement. The IS-3, with its iconic pike nose, looked like the future. It rolled through Berlin during the 1945 Victory Parade. The T-54 set the post-war standard. Over 35,000 were built in the USSR alone, forming the core of the most produced tank family in history. Amphibious capability returned. The PT-76 could swim at about 10 kilometers per hour. It was used by dozens of countries worldwide. The final Soviet heavy tank, originally designated IS-8, but after Stalin's death, it was renamed T-10. The T-55 refined the concept of the main battle tank. It became one of the first mass-produced tanks with full NBC protection for the crew, one of the most widely used tanks in history. The T-62 introduced a revolution in firepower. It mounted the world's first serial smoothbore tank gun. Tank ballistics changed forever. The T-64 marked a technological leap. Composite armor, autoloader, three-man crew. It was never intended for export. The T-72 was designed for large-scale war. Simpler, cheaper, mass-producible. It became the most widespread tank of the Warsaw Pact. The T-80 changed the mobility equation. It became the first mass-produced tank powered by a gas turbine engine. Fast and expensive, the T-80U represented the peak of Soviet tank design. It was among the first to field Contact 5 explosive reactive armor, capable of countering modern kinetic threats. The final step before the end of an era, from imitation to innovation. From light tanks to main battle tanks. This was the evolution of Soviet armor.